So I've been reading this book, Biblical Doctrine by John MacArthur and Richard Mayhew. I'm teaching a systematic theology class on it, using this as the textbook. And the point of this video is to review this section on God's existence, the existence of God in chapter 3. And the first thing they do there under proper theology proper is to go over the existence of God. Okay. So I want to review this because I see some real weaknesses here in the way that the authors approach this subject, because they follow the presuppositional approach to the existence of God or apologetics rather than the classical apologetic method. Okay, so they start by saying the existence of God can only be proved by Scripture, not by natural proofs. But they do it in such a weak way. This volume does not seek to prove, this is page 144, this volume does not seek to prove the existence of God from human reasoning, but rather presupposes that God, the God of the Bible, exists, and endeavors to set forth what the Bible teaches about God. Here they give a little thing on the inadequacy of the natural proofs. And then they give, first of all, the natural proofs. They list the ontological argument, number one, the cosmological argument, the teleological argument, the moral argument, so 4 excellent arguments. And then they list these other 2 arguments which are pitiful, the universality of religion and the progress of humanity. So those are so weak, I'm not even going to go into those. So, but the thing that strikes you of this section, of this inadequacy of natural proofs, is just the extreme caution with which MacArthur and Mayhew approach the subject. I'm going to mention to you, just to point out all the cautions that they put out, because, heaven forbid we use reason to prove the existence of God, which they say is not even possible. So to me, this really smacks of anti-intellectualism and it's kind of a negative side effect of fundamentalism, which is fine. I'm a theological fundamentalist, but this kind of like being weary, so extremely weary of anything that, of any logical argument is really annoying. Okay, so the ontological argument. They say that, check this out, page 148, considered in and of themselves, the natural proofs for the existence of God do not prove the existence of God, of the God of the Bible. Okay, so he's saying these natural proofs won't prove the right kind of God, the God of the Bible. But in fact, they do not even prove the existence of any God. See, and that is where you cross the line now. You're saying that the natural proofs of the existence of God, those arguments that we just mentioned, you're saying they don't even prove the existence of God? Now we have a real problem, because they do. Because if those arguments, if there was no real proof for the existence of God apart from the Scripture, then people would be able to have an excuse. If you're a non-Christian, you're a person living on an island, you never have any contact with the Bible, and then then you die, then you will be able to stand before God and say, yeah, I do have an excuse. You didn't give me any proof that you even existed, so how was I supposed to worship you? But in fact, from nature, through natural theology, we can understand that God does exist and therefore have no excuse before God, even if you never encounter the special revelation of God in the Scripture. Okay, so check this out. They explain the ontological argument, and then they say, it should be a caution to Christians that the Greek philosopher Plato held to a form of this argument, though he concluded that it pointed to many personal forms, not to a single God. Okay, so somehow we should be cautioned because Plato also understood this argument. Then, further down, one should be warned by the fact that non-evangelical thinkers have also held to a form of this argument, including René Descartes, Baruch Spinoza, Leibniz, Hegel, and some other guys. Okay, so because a non-evangelical believe this, now we've got to be really wary of it. Never mind. I mean, you know what else a lot of non-evangelicals, a lot of non-Christians believe? They also believe that 1 + 1 = 2. They honestly believe that is that can be proven through reason, through empirical observation, that 1 plus 1 equals 2. A lot of non-Christians believe that. Now, should we as Christians be weary of that natural proof apart from Scripture that 1 plus 1 equals 2? No, of course not, because all truth is God's truth, and there's only one level of truth. There's only true and untrue, okay? So if 1 plus 1 equals 2 is true, then it's just as true as anything that is true in the Bible. So I wish these presuppositionalist guys would get this, because they are actually throwing away their opportunity to be a witness to people and to win more people to Jesus when they discount natural revelation and natural theology to the point of being so weary of it and casting it aside. Okay. Next thing, the cosmological argument. Now, the cosmological argument is so epic. Among apologists, this is, usually the strongest proof that we can give for the existence of God. It's so airtight. It's beautiful. Okay, but let's see what they say about it. They present a little summary of it from Thomas Aquinas and say what it is. However, caution must be noted in that the Muslim philosopher Al-Ghazali, sorry, I butchered that. He also believed, he used a form of this argument to argue for the existence of Allah. Now, okay, so Muslims and Christians believe the same, that there is one God who is the supreme and only God. So the fact that Muslims and Christians have that in common, and that a Muslim scholar from the 11th century used this to prove the existence of God, that's not bad news, that's good news, because even the Muslims, using logic and using the what God has given to us in natural revelation, has shown that yes, there is a single God who exists from which all else comes. So that's good news, not bad news. But just because a Muslim now believed it, now all of a sudden we've got to be having more caution. Then they move on to the teleological argument, the argument from design. This, they say, is Aquinas' fifth way. But then again, this view, I quote, this argument has also been held by non-Christians. And here we go, Plato, Aristotle, and Immanuel Kant. Therefore, this argument does not necessarily point people to the true God. Wow, it's really annoying. Then the moral argument, they say that note that the Enlightenment philosopher Immanuel Kant also asserted a form of the moral argument, and he denied both the Trinity and the Incarnation. So again, it's like, oh, he has an argument for the existence of God, but a bad guy who didn't believe in the Trinity, he also believed this, so now we should be wary of it. Moving on, yeah. Okay. Yeah, on page 150 of the book, they give a response to the natural proofs. These natural proofs are exercises in building theology from below, of measuring God by human thinking. Okay, that's the thing that they say about it. Okay, yeah, they go. Here are some general criticisms of these so-called proofs. They literally say that. Okay, none of these arguments necessitate only one God, and none of them necessitate the God of the Bible. These arguments can point just as easily to multiple beings. No, it doesn't. So if you actually study these arguments as, most apologists put them forward, I'm thinking of Frank Turek and Norman Geisler in their book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, or you read R.C. Sproul, or you read William Lane Craig, you'll see that actually the cosmological argument, when taken together with the teleological argument and the moral argument, when you take those three together, and even on just the cosmological argument, show that it's only possible for it to be one God. Okay, and then if you flesh out the implications of those arguments, that you will see that this God has attributes, that he is transcendent, that he is morally good, that he is infinite, he's eternal, he's beyond time, space, or matter, right? So when you understand the implications of these excellent arguments for the existence of God, then you will see that it points to a God so similar to the God of the Bible that it already disqualifies all of polytheism, and it points to a single God. And so what do we have left? We have Islam, we have Christianity, and Judaism. Okay, so then the implications of those arguments point to such a narrow God that you already in a very good direction. Okay, so they simply misunderstand those arguments and are missing the real potential of these arguments. I think the biggest problem with this too is it misses the distinction between proof and persuasion. Obviously, not everyone is persuaded by the truth and by proofs about God's existence, sure, because people are fallen and they suppress the truth and unrighteousness. Yeah, but that does not mean that these natural proofs aren't legitimate proof. They do prove beyond a reasonable doubt that God does exist. Not absolute formal certainty as in to the extreme point, but the probabilities of God existing according to these arguments is so overwhelming that it would be completely unreasonable to reject them. Okay, so that's my little rant about biblical doctrine, their section on the existence of God. This book is excellent, and really, I'm a massive fan of John MacArthur. If you know me, I love the guy. I've listened to hundreds of his sermons, and my theology is so close to his. But on this particular point, presuppositionalism versus classical apologetics, I just cannot stomach this, and I find it that there's a real missed opportunity, and it smacks of anti-intellectualism, and I think that we could be winning more people to Jesus by not following their approach, and also as a means to encourage people who are Christians, as a means to show them, no, that what we believe is perfectly rational, and this is compelling evidence that the Bible is true and that God does exist. So we can strengthen the faith of Christians as well by drawing on some of these epic arguments for the existence of God through the classical apologetics method.